Good afternoon, everyone. We will now begin this session. Welcome, everyone joining us in the room and online. My name is Shamina. I lead communications at the Circulate initiative. And this session, From Marginalized to Recognized, is co-hosted by BBC Media Action, HomeNet International, the International Alliance of Waste Pickers, and the Circulate initiative. So the session will focus on workers in material production and recycling supply chain, with a focus on home workers and waste pickers. I'll do a quick walkthrough of the agenda. So this agenda is split into three interconnected segments. The first segment will focus on the informal economy sector, worker challenges, and what it means to enable and finance a just transition for these workers. The second segment will center on remediation solutions, focusing on the role of brands and recyclers, responsible sourcing pathways, and the need for a harmonized framework. And finally, we will close with how we should look at rights and recognition through the lens of media and public action. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce Verinder Kaur Gambhir, the India Country Director for BBC Media Action, to kick us off with the first segment. Verinder, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Shamina. Good afternoon, everyone present here in this room. I am delighted to be guiding you through the first session today. I'm hoping everybody's having a great day. So today's session that we are going to start off is going to focus on workers' voices as well as the challenges faced in the informal economy. And as a practitioner working at BBC Media Action, where we use media for the marginalized and vulnerable, as well as, as part of Samuhika Shakti, where we are working very, very closely with the waste pickers, I think I've had first-hand account of how invisibility can really get compounded if the contributions that a certain segment of the society, if the contributions are not being recognized, it's also something that is denying them their right to identity and, existence. So in this segment, we are going to address a few of these challenges, hope to address some of these challenges because these are very deep-rooted. I also understand that it can't be just, one forum, one session which can address it. But I'm joined today by HomeNet International and the International Alliance of Waste Pickers, two organizations that are working to ensure that informal economy workers, who are often invisible and unrecognized, are included in the global conversations on responsible business conduct. Let me begin by first welcoming all my panel participants. First, I would want to welcome Sarbani Katal, who's the program coordinator at HomeNet International, overseeing the programmatic activities as well as monitoring, learning, and evaluation. HomeNet International is a global network of membership-based worker organizations that represents more than 1.5 million home-based workers from 71 organizations spread across 30 countries from 5 regions. The network aims to raise visibility and gain recognition for the home-based workers. Next, I would like to welcome Sushila Sable. Sushila was born in Shirner village in Maharashtra, endured poverty and the 1972 drought that forced her family to migrate to Mumbai, where she began waste picking as a child. Longing for education, she learned to read at 30 and is now continuing her dream of learning English at the age of 58. Married young, she left an abusive husband and returned to waste picking while raising her son. Her turning point came with Sri Mukti Sangathan, where she helped form self-help groups for the waste pickers. Today, Sushila serves as Vice President of the International Alliance of Waste Pickers, advocating for their dignity, their rights, and integration into the solid waste management system. Welcome, Sushila ji. She's joined by Kabir Arora, who's been the General Secretary of the International Alliance of Waste Pickers since July 2024. Kabir will be helping us translate for Sushila and what Sushila wants to say to the group today here. Welcome, everybody. To set the context, I would want to pose a question to the audience. How much, and I'm sure it's a very easy one for this audience, but what percentage of the people do you think are engaged in informal economies? A show of hands, if anybody wants to go for it. Yes, please. What's the percentage of people who are engaged in informal sector? Yes? Okay, that's all right. Maybe a show of hands, do you think it's less than 50? You want to go for the answer? Please do. Bingo. Yes, it is 60%. 2 billion people in the world, 60% of the working population is in the informal economy. Yet, we see the gaps. We see how their basic social protection rights are not looked after. Today's discussion is to reflect on some of these gaps. And in the next 15 minutes, we'll explore why brands and producers rely on home workers and waste pickers at all, and what are the human rights which are at risk, and how is it that they can ensure that there is fair and safe work when they're working with the informal waste pickers as well as for the home workers. I will turn to Sharbani for my first question. Why do you think, Sharbani, brands use home workers in their supply chains at all?
My namaste to everyone. Thank you, Verinder, for the question. Before I answer that, I would like to briefly explain who home-based workers are and also show you a short video of a home-based worker. So when we talk about home-based workers, they're workers who work from in or around their homes, either producing goods or providing services. There are informal workers, where majority of them are women. There are two categories of home-based workers. The first one are self-employed home-based workers, where they design, produce, and market their own products, either locally or globally. The second one are piece rate workers, or where we call them home workers, where they are subcontracted either by an individual, a firm, a trader, or organization, either directly or indirectly, often through middlemen. They are provided with work instructions, they're provided with raw materials, and are paid based on the pieces that they produce. So ILO data of 2019 estimates that there are around 260 million home-based workers globally. And among these two categories of home-based workers, piece rate workers or home workers are the most vulnerable and exploited workers we can find in the supply chain. And 2019 ILO data states that there are around 49 million home workers. So I would like to show you a short video where a home workers provides her story of how the life is as a home worker. Video, please.
สวัสดีค่ะดิฉันชื่อกิ่งประภาพรภัทรดลนะคะเย็บผ้าตั้งแต่อายุ14ตอนนี้ก็47ละตรงนี้ก็คือเป็นบริเวณของเย็บผ้าค่ะแล้วข้างในเราก็กั้นห้องสมมติ8ชั่วโมงอย่างเงี้ยเราก็ทำงาน8ชั่วโมงเช้าใช่ไหมคะเราก็เริ่มงานตั้งแต่7โมงถ้าเราขยันหน่อยก็6โมงบางวันก็ตี5แล้วเราก็เลิกงานประมาณสัก3ทุ่ม4ทุ่มประมาณนี้ค่ะเราก็อยู่ในเบรกของเราในแมทของเราเองถ้างานเร่งหน่อยก็5ทุ่มเป็นบางวันถ้าตีเฉลี่ยอย่างอยู่คนเดียวอย่างเงี้ยคุณหาเงินไว้เลยจ่ายค่าห้องค่าอยู่ค่ากินของเราเนี่ย 7,000 บาทก็จะบีบให้ได้50ตัวค่ะต่อวันเพราะเรามีเป้าหมายไงถ้ามาทำอยู่ที่25ตัวเราไม่ได้กินอะไรค่าไฟเราก็ไม่คุ้มมันไม่คุ้มหลายๆอย่างบางทีปวดชิ้นช่องเดี๋ยวอีก2ตัวป่ะอีกตัวนึงป่ะเดี๋ยวเร่งก่อนแล้วเร่งก่อนอะไรเงี้ยบางทีมันก็ลืมไปเลยพอลืมไปว่ามันเริ่มใหม่แล้วพอเราไปปัสสาวะมันก็ทีละนิดมันเราไม่เราปวดท้องพอปวดท้องขึ้นมาปั๊บก็กระเพาะอักเสบต้องกินยาละแต่ทุกวันนี้พูดตรงๆนะมันเหมือนมันงานรับอย่างเงี้ยเขาจะบีบราคาเรามากที่สุดบางทีเขาบอกว่าโอ้คุณได้มาแค่นี้ผมได้แค่2 บาทเองผมให้คุณเท่านี้นะอะไรเงี้ย
So this is a short story of a home-based worker from Thailand, and there are many home-based workers who face similar situation. Now, going back to your question, why do brands use home-based workers? First of all is the flexibility of labor force. Many home workers do not have any work during lean season, but however, during peak season, brand wants factories to complete large orders, and factories may not have the capacity to fulfill those orders. So what they do is they subcontract to smaller workshops, and smaller workshops subcontracts to home workers. So This flexibility of labor allows brands to scale production up and down and meet seasonal fluctuation without any informal employment obligation. The second reason is the low cost of production. Home workers work anywhere between 12 to 18 hours a day. They use their own space as workspace. They pay for their own equipment and utilities. So that drastically reduces the cost of production. Furthermore, they're paid less than minimum wage. Whereas factory workers get at least a minimum wage, home workers do not have that chance. So that reduces brands' cost of production as well. And lastly, brand uses home workers because of their artisanal and craft skills, such as embroidery, embellishment, knitting, that adds value to the product. So these are the key reasons why brand use home workers.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And clearly, it's not just about the importance of the work that the home workers provide. It's also about what is needed in their contribution. And we'll come to that a little bit later. I want to first hear from Sushila ji. Can you share your thoughts on the role of waste pickers in fulfilling the extended producer's responsibility mandate for brands? Again, we are trying to understand the important role being played by the waste pickers for the brands.
नमस्कार, मुझे आप सुनने का मौका दिया, बोलने का मौका दिया यहाँ। कचरा बीनने वाले लोग जो है ईपीआर के लिए योगदान देते हैं। हमारा काम जो है, हम कंपनी वालों के लिए अदृश्य कामगार है। कम से कम दुनिया में 40 लाख हमारे लोग हैं। सुबह 4 बजे उठते हैं, कोई 7 बजे जाता है, कोई 4 बजे से काम करता है।
Namaste. I am quite grateful for giving me an opportunity to speak here. And we as waste pickers are, for EPR, on the question of EPR, we as waste pickers are invisible workers of a lot of these companies. There are around 4 million waste pickers in the world, 40 million waste pickers in the world.
रास्ते पे डंपिंग के ऊपर, कुंडी के ऊपर, गली गली में और घर घर में भी कचरा हम उठाते हैं। तो ये हम महत्वपूर्ण काम करते हैं। सूखा कचरा हर कंपनी से तैयार होके आता है, लोग उसको यूज़ करते हैं, फेंकते हैं या इधर उधर डालते हैं या डब्बे में रखते हैं। तो हम उसको जमा करते हैं, इकट्ठा करते हैं और उसको रिसाइकल के लिए भेजते हैं अलग अलग करके।
So many of us start working at 4 o'clock in the morning, 7 till 7 in the evening. We do door-to-door collection of waste. A lot of FMCG companies and others manufacture products. People use them and then they throw them away, and we are the people who collect them, pick them, sort them, and send them for recycling.
और दूसरा जो है मार्केट जो उठ जाता है तो रात को वहाँ से भी हम लोग कलेक्ट करते हैं। कोई रात को मार्केट उठने के बाद तो हम सुबह 4 बजे से लोग जागते हैं और इन कंपनी के लिए काम करते हैं।
So we pick up from the places where you have markets running in the daytime. We pick them up when they shut down. We pick up all the leftovers and we start working from 4 a.m. in the morning, and this is the work which is contributing to the company's work.
तो हम यही चाहते हैं कि अभी हमें जानने लगे, थोड़े ऐसे बड़े बड़े कार्यक्रम में बुलाने लगे हैं, तो हमारा काम का वैल्यू होना चाहिए, हमें उसमें समावेश करना चाहिए उन ईपीआर के काम में।
So we have been invited to these big events. Now what needs to be done, we need to be incorporated in the extended producers responsibility work of the companies are doing.
Thanks. Yes, and I've also been told that we are short of time. So thank you so much for that, Sushila ji.
हमारा काम बहुत बड़ा है, 50-60 साल का, वो तो बताया नहीं मैंने। 50 साल से जब 10 साल की थी तभी से काम करती है।
Yes. So Sheila ji is basically saying that it's work of 50, 60 years and she's been given, the bare minimum of time. So she's trying her best to tell us everything in such short time. Thank you, Sushila ji. I think because you've also covered, Kabir, in Sushila ji's answer about the challenges that you're also facing, my next question is to you, Sharbani. Of course, it's coming very clear from everything that you all are saying that there is a lot to be done, right? And it's important to have the right voices in the room when the solutions are being, discussed and the stakeholders are talking about what's the next step. I think it's important that the voices from the ground are a part of that consultation. Sharbani, my next question to you is because you spoke about why the home workers are important and why are they important to the brands and businesses. What human and labor rights do you feel they are facing in the supply chains, and what should brands and governments do to ensure that these are, there are decent work conditions for the home workers? Sorry, but you'll have to keep it very short. We don't have much time.
So they face many human and labor right issues. First of all is that they lack legal recognition and protection. There are many countries that not include home workers in their national laws. Second is that they have no social protection. They have no benefits at all. They're not recognized as workers. They are also working in unsafe conditions. Their homes are usually very cramped spaces. They are prone to very strong chemicals while they work. They're prone to allergies from all the dust and fabric that they have to work with. They have no bargaining power. On top of that, they have to juggle between unpaid care responsibilities and work. And because of the reliance of multiple layers of middlemen in between, that distances brand from direct accountability. So that makes home-based workers invisible in the supply chain, invisible in brand's audit, as well as invisible in due diligence process. So government and brands both have a responsibility to treat home workers as real workers with full rights. Government needs to ensure that they're included in their national laws, provide contracts, provide at least a minimum wage, include them in national statistics so that they're visible in policy making, and also ensure that brands comply to the standards and norms. Whereas brands, they also need to recognize home workers in their supply chain, ensure that they are provided with social security benefits, ideally a living wage, but at least right now we're trying to advocate for at least a minimum wage because they don't even get that. They need to be provided with social security benefits, safe working conditions, training where necessary, and also establish grievance system to ensure accountability.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I think also important to understand how important this is for business sustainability, right? So thanks for that. So Sheila ji, coming to you very quickly to ask, what is your view on why should responsible businesses be concerned regarding human and labor right issues for the waste pickers at all?
देखिए, हम भी इंसान हैं, इसमें काम करते हैं और हमारा हक बनता है कि हम इसमें काम करते हैं तो हमारा इंसान होने के नाते हमें सब इंसान की तरह सब सुविधा होना चाहिए। हमारे बच्चे पढ़ने चाहिए, हमें सामाजिक सुरक्षा मिलनी चाहिए। हम जो है पढ़े लिखे नहीं है तो क्या हुआ, लेकिन इंसान तो है ना।
We are also human beings. We should be treated as human beings, and we are working, and for that we should be treated as human beings. And other thing is that our children should be in the school. We are not literate, but we still are human beings. And lastly, we should have access to social protection.
और हमें जो सुरक्षा देंगे तो हमारे काम में बढ़ोतरी मिलेगी, हमें ज़्यादा आमदनी बढ़ेगी तो हमारा जो अधिकार है हम अच्छे से जी पाएंगे। जो हमें चाहिए, इतने साल से जो कोई हमें देखता नहीं था, अभी उनकी बारी आ गई है कंपनी वालों की, तो उन्होंने अच्छे से उनके जो यूपीआर का कानून है तो अच्छे से निभाना चाहिए। और जो हमें ज़रूरत है, सामाजिक सुरक्षा, हमारे आरोग्य की सुरक्षा, ये उन्होंने देखना चाहिए कि हम 50-60 साल से उनकी काम कर रहे हैं, किसी ने देखा नहीं, उन्होंने भी देखा नहीं, वो भी जानते भी नहीं है कितने लोग काम करते हैं उनके लिए। वो तो
If you support us, our work will expand and we will be able to live very well. And we want an inclusive EPR to be implemented. From last 50 to 60 years, we have been working on this. They never recognized us. This is the opportunity of recognition for us.
Thanks. Oh, sorry. Sushila ji?
जी
Anything else?
नहीं, यही मैं कहना चाहूँगी कि जो है इंसान के लिए ज़रूरत, बड़े बड़े लोगों की ज़रूरत अलग होती है, गरीब लोगों की ज़रूरत अलग होती है, वो कम खर्चे में निपटाते हैं अपना काम। तो जैसे उद्योगपति बन गए हैं हमारे बल पे, तो उन्होंने उनकी जिम्मेदारी अच्छे से निभानी चाहिए, यही मैं चाहती हूँ।
Perfect.
So, for rich people, there is different needs. For poor people, there are different needs. And the rich people have become rich because of us, and it's now your responsibility to ensure that we get our share. Thank you.
Right. I want to go to the audience so that they can ask a couple of questions as well. But just can I give 30 seconds to both of you to close it? If there's any supporting examples, positive examples, let's just talk about positive deviance when we talk about just transitions maybe. First to you, Sharbani, and then coming to Sushila ji, again, any positive thing or what role businesses can play to ensure decent workers' rights, please. 30 seconds, maybe just as brief as you can.
Thank you. So some positive examples are the legal frameworks that we can find. For example, in Thailand, there is a Home Workers Protection Act. So this ensures that home workers can access social protection schemes. Home-based worker organization, they're also trying to advocate for home workers to also access maternity allowance as well. In Pakistan, they also have a Home-Based Workers Protection Act. It started from Sindh in 2018. Now other provinces also have the act. For example, in Punjab and Balochistan as well. Home workers are also included in labor codes, such as in Bulgaria and Philippines. And in Australia, home workers are treated as factory workers based on their Fair Work Amendment Act. So for just financing, as home workers are isolated, they work from homes, they are not aware of these legal provisions that they can access. So organizing is very important. Sensitizing them is very important, and also helping them to collectively bargain with brands and employers is also very important. And another example of brands is that there are many brands that directly contact home-based worker organizations or producer companies, where they create work centers nearby the homes of home-based workers, and they comply with both a local and international code of conduct. So one example is a social enterprise called Rajasthan, that's in India, that directly contracts with big brands. Another example locally is a domestic brand here in Thailand called Nomjit, where they make school uniforms. So they provide home workers with more wages than factory workers, because home workers also fulfill the cost of production as well. So these are some of the examples.
Thanks, Sharbani. Over to you, Sushila ji. Kabir, maybe under a minute.
Okay.
क्या हुआ? बोलो। हाँ, आपने बताया नहीं ना मुझे। ये भाषा का बहुत अड़चन होती है। जो अच्छा काम हो रहा है हमारे भारत में, अभी हमारे भारत सरकार ने हमारे लिए नमस्ते स्कीम लाया है। हम सालों से मांग कर रहे थे कि हमें पहचान पत्र दे दो, तो नहीं मिल रहा था, लेकिन अच्छा काम किया है। अभी उन्होंने हमारी नोंद कर रहे हैं, हमारी ये हो रही है, क्या गणना हो रही है, तो ये अच्छा काम हुआ है। म्यूनसिपाल्टी भी अच्छा काम कर लेती है थोड़ा, और कोई कंपनी आगे आके भी हमें काम दे रही है, हमें बुला के बात कर रही है, तो ये अच्छा काम हो गया है। अभी ईपीआर का काम थोड़ा हमारा साउथ अफ्रीका में भी चल रहा है। उधर के हमें अभी हम घाना से आए हैं कल, तो वहाँ हमारे 5 दिन मीटिंग चली थी, तो उसमें उन्होंने बताया कि हमारे साथ ईपीआर काम कर रहा है, तो उनको भी मदद हो रही है। जो हम अफ्रीका सब अलग अलग से देश से हम लोग संगठित हुए हैं और इंटरनेशनल अलायंस स्पीकर बना है, तो इसमें हम सब लोग मिलते हैं। और इसमें मिलने के लिए भी हमें संस्थाएं, कंपनियां मदद करती है, तो ये अच्छा काम हो रहा है अभी.
So language translation is always a challenge, so it's always difficult to move between. And in India, we have a program called Namaste, which has a mandate of giving occupational identity card to waste pickers. We also have registration and enumeration going on in India under this program. Some of the companies have also started giving us direct contracts. And with regards to EPR, we have a lot of work done in South Africa where there are active partnerships for EPR. We meet at the International Alliance of Waste Pickers quite regularly, and some of it is actually possible because of the contributions made by companies and other philanthropic organizations. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sushila ji. Thank you. I'm sorry that we have this short span of time and we have other panelists coming over. But just to very quickly open the floor, if there's any one pressing question for the panelists, please let us know. Yes, please. Please also let us know who you're addressing.
Yes. What about the entitlement right and occupational health of this worker? Because particularly in India, you are aware that there is no such kind of entitlement. So a lot of police harassment and corporation harassment. I'm coming from Ahmedabad. So at least in a month, my organization are received more than 20 to 25 complaints either by municipality, against municipality and police. So what kind of policy recommendation they are suggesting?
Sharmani, would you want to take this over? Are you referring to home workers? Are you referring to waste pickers? Okay.
Number of women are also harassed by local police and gundas.
Right. Kabir, could Sushila ji understand the question and would you want to take it? Okay.
पहले जब हम संगठित नहीं थे तभी कुछ लोग तंग करते थे. अभी उनको पता चला है कि इनकी पहुंच कहाँ तक है, तो अभी इतना कोई तंग नहीं करता है. म्यूनसिपालिटी भी आ गया के काम कर रही है, क्योंकि हम पर्यावरण के लिए काम करते हैं, उनका काम करते हैं. उनके जैसा इधर उधर झाड़ू मार के पैसा नहीं लेते. हम झुकते एक एक चीज़ के लिए, अपने कंधों पे सर पे उठा के और लेके जाके उसका अलग अलग करके. हम पानी नहीं मिलता है, कभी हाथ धोने को, पेशाब करने को जगह नहीं रहता है. घूम के कचरा बीनते हैं तो उधर कोई पानी भी नहीं देता है सामने से. डंपिंग के ऊपर कचरा बीनने वाले लोगों को कुछ भी नहीं, सुविधा नहीं है. तो वहाँ हम काम करते हैं तो वो उनको बताते हैं कि हमारा काम कितना महत्वपूर्ण है और एक कंपनी वालों के लिए भी महत्वपूर्ण है, क्योंकि हमारे ऊपर हमारी सबसे नीचे कड़ी जो है, ये हम नीचे वाले लोग हैं. हमारे ऊपर सब बनते बनते चले गए हैं, तो अभी हम सबको आंखें मिला के बात करके बताते हैं हमारे काम के बारे में. तो नहीं, कोई नहीं है.
Okay, so we used to face harassments before, but we don't, since we are organized, and organizing help us to become visible. And they also recognize that we work for environment, and this recognition is coming. In past, municipalities were interfering. They know that we are cleaning the environment for them. We are also some people who will not clean and just get paid. We actually bow down and pick up the materials from, and then ensure that we save the environment. Then in dump site and other places, we don't get drinking water facility. There is no sort of support for that. But over a period of time, our recognition is coming. At this point of time, we are able to see eye to eye to the people and are able to communicate directly with them. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
धन्यवाद.
Yes, Sushila ji. Thank you. I think that's a great note to end the panel on. Thank you so much for that. If there are any other questions, please do reach out to the panelists later, but we will end here. Thank you so much. And sorry about the time.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सबका मैं आभार मानती हूँ। कम समय में हमारी बातें सुन ली, इसीलिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। हमें टाइम ही नहीं मिलता है पूरा बात रखने के लिए, फिर भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
I'm quite grateful to you for giving us the time to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Varinda, Sabani, Sushila, and Kabir. So reflecting on the challenges that was covered in that first segment, we will now turn to a conversation on remediation and responsible sourcing. And I'm pleased to introduce Sneha, our impact lead at the Circulate initiative, to drive the conversation. Sneha, over to you.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you doing today? Great, with full energy? Thank you for joining our session. Before I dive further and introduce our panelists, I would like to share briefly about the Responsible Sourcing Initiative and about what we do. And just to put things into perspective, 400 million tons of plastic waste is generated every year globally, and yet only 9% is getting recycled. Now, even of that 9%, the 40 million waste pickers that you just heard from Sushila ji and Kabir, they are the most responsible people who drive that recycling and collection of plastic waste. Yet, the human rights challenges that you just heard from them, they're faced by these waste workers across the globe. This is the crisis that we are trying to address through the Responsible Sourcing Initiative. How? By working with each and every stakeholder across the full value chain, which includes brands, recycling companies, aggregators and small businesses, as well as waste pickers, to work together in identifying risks, then remediating those risks with an actionable roadmap. This actionable roadmap for us is the Harmonized Responsible Sourcing Framework, which we published last year. And that's a guidebook for us which drives our implementation projects at the moment in 4 geographies, including India, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Kenya. I will need probably half an hour to explain the framework, but we do have a video which does that in just 2.5 minutes, and I'll request to play the video, please.
According to projections, by 2040, the world could be facing 30 million metric tons of mismanaged plastic waste. Informal waste sector workers and waste pickers, who drive nearly 60% of global recycling efforts, are on the front lines of our plastic pollution battle. Yet, they continue to face many human rights issues, including unsafe working conditions, poor health and safety, social stigma, child labour, and low wages. The Circulate Initiative's Responsible Sourcing Initiative is a global program designed to address the most pressing human rights challenges in the plastics recycling value chain. Responsible sourcing ensures that human rights for all workers, including waste pickers in the plastics recycling value chain, are protected. To achieve this, we need a comprehensive framework with clear guidelines to implement responsible sourcing practices. The Harmonized Responsible Sourcing Framework for Recycled Plastics is the first global effort to provide an actionable approach for companies to implement responsible sourcing. It is informed by the perspectives of all waste sector workers and waste pickers and developed to focus on their needs. The Harmonized Framework helps companies assess human rights issues, reduce value chain and reputational risk, and meet the growing regulatory demands in the recycled plastics value chain. Addressing key value chain issues requires continuous improvement. The framework outlines 5 key themes to drive solutions for responsible sourcing: economic empowerment, health and safety, autonomy and inclusion, collective representation, and gender equality. Developed in consultation with over 40 organisations, including informal sector representatives, global brands, investors, recycling companies, and civil society, it reflects best practices and collective expertise. We call upon businesses, investors, buyers of recycled plastics, and other stakeholders to adopt the harmonised framework and advance efforts towards inclusive and socially responsible value chains. Access the harmonised framework today to learn more.
Thank you. I would now like to welcome and introduce my two co-panelists. We have with us today Narisa. Narisa is from HP Inc. and she leads the global supplier monitoring at HP, where she drives responsible sourcing and sustainability compliance across complex supply chains. Her work currently focuses on enhancing supplier performance standards, aligning with the responsible business alliance practices, and also integrating human rights due diligence into procurement practices of HP. Thank you for joining us today, Narisa. The other panelist we have is Swaroop, KVR, who heads the Waste Management, Sustainability and EPR at Sri Chakra Polyplast. Sri Chakra Polyplast is one of the first food-grade recycling companies which does bottle-to-bottle recycling in India. Swaroop is an expert at developing inclusive and sustainable solutions, and he currently leads the responsible sourcing efforts at Sri Chakra Polyplast, ensuring fair livelihoods for workers and also improving the collection and recycling of plastic waste in India. Thank you, Swaroop. My first question is to you, Narisa, and if I can start by what brands can do to drive responsible sourcing, which currently you lead at HP, in addressing human rights risks, and especially in the recycling supply chain, and how does it fit in with HP's global strategy?
Well, thank you, Sneha. First, a little bit about HP. HP was founded in 2015. We're quite young, but we split from the original Hewlett-Packard company into two separate entities back in 2015. So the company that was split was Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, that focus on enterprise computing, and us, HP Inc., we focus on personal system computing, printers, and peripherals. So at HP, we believe that respecting human rights is not just a responsibility, but it's actually respect is core to HP's DNA. Business can play a meaningful role in addressing human rights challenges. We can't do it alone. System needs to change, and for that, collaboration is key for us. Let me start with what the role that business can play. The reality is no business or organization can solve these global issues alone. Collective action has always been part of HP's approach, especially in supply chain where there are multi-layers between HP and the source of the material, or where we're not the only one sourcing from these suppliers. We're proud to be part of the RSI Global Responsible Sourcing Network, where brands come together to learn more about how to remediate risk in the recycling value chain. Secondly, we need not only collective action, but we need multi-stakeholder action. So working together with our peers, you, the recycler, civil society, policymaker, and business, together we could set a common standard. This was the practice when the harmonized framework was developed, where global stakeholders came together to decide what's a must-have, what's a good-to-have system across all tiers of the recycling value chain. Third, we have also make use of the Million Maker program. It's a pilot project with Blue Number. We use worker voice to help inform where remediation is needed. This worker engagement help us to collaborate with our suppliers to identify and address risks that's site-specific. So at one participating site, a specific gap was identified. At that site, workers have limited knowledge about and awareness of grievance mechanism, and there was indicator that there's a possible restriction of movement. In response to that, suppliers implemented several improvements. There was a refresher briefing on company policies. We updated communication tools for the worker. There was internal trainings that factory supervisors and workers were made use of, and the supplier then requested a follow-up assessment to evaluate their progress. So it's a growing a sign of growing trust and commitment from towards improvement. Worker also feels more comfortable reporting concern without fear of retaliation. Supply has already begun implementing education session on workers' rights, supervisors training to balance safety protocol with freedom of movement. So to conclude, business can engage and be part of this collective multi-stakeholders action to address the human rights challenges in the complex supply chain.
Thank you, Nadisa. And that's well said, because one of the efforts that we make is to work with everybody in the supply chain so that it's a shared responsibility in the RSI. And also thank you for sharing about some of the remediation examples about what we have learned on the field, something very similar that we are learning in different geographies, including Vietnam, where we are working with HP. It's an interesting segue for me to move to the other stakeholder who is a very strong part of this value chain, is the recycling companies. And if I can ask you, Swaroop, as a recycler, what challenges are you currently facing in driving the business and also balancing the concerns of human rights? And what is it that at Sri Chakra you are doing?
Thanks, Neha, for having me here. And good afternoon and namaste to everybody. Just to set a context to the recycling effort, in terms of the value chain system, when we are talking about the responsible sourcing framework across, recycler becomes the first point of contact and also the last point of complaints contact for a brand to work with. So that's where it starts, and then that's where it also stops, where the brand would look at much better compliance in the system. Just to give you setting a better context to this item is most of the recycling in terms of plastic today either has been a downstream recycling or a downgraded recycling. But when the effort taken up by Sri Chakra was more to get back into a circular product, which is a bottle-to-bottle recycling, which technically means a bottle once consumed has to get back, and again the same recycled product goes back into a new bottle which is made. This brings in a lot of requirement of compliances which a brand expects from us. And this also means it's not just the product or the technical capability of the product that is made as a recycler from our end. It also means that there is certain amount of traceability or certain amount of compliances which need to be monitored by the brands, because they also feel that that's their responsibility to the consumers of theirs. Now, with that context set, we see that the broad challenges, broadly I can maybe list out a top 3 challenges in terms of how this can be looked at. The first challenge or the key challenge would be to talk about what is the definition of the responsible sourcing and where does it start? What is the expectation of a brand to get in? Are we talking about the element of sourcing to be taken to the first level of aggregator, or there are multiple players in between who also are part of the informal value chain and which become critical for our entire supply chain network? So who is addressing that, or is there a proper definition around it is the first challenge which we did face around 2 to 2.5 years ago. The second challenge which we also see, or which we faced earlier, was in terms of what is it in it for a supplier who would like to expose his value chain. Typically, all our interactions happen at the aggregator level, who are the ones who supply the raw material to us, and the stream below them is sometimes mostly hidden or totally hidden, where we wouldn't know how many layers are working with him and what kind of interaction does he have with those people. So the question again coming from the suppliers is, if you want to have the information and the kind of compliance levels on these supply chain, what is in it for that supplier to actually look at that kind of a compliance? This is the second piece. And the third challenge that we also see is in terms of managing the network, the entire, while we do that as part of the recycler recycling operations in our daily life. So what we also see is the question is about the kind of raw material and what is the costing that is getting associated to this conversion of this raw material to an end product. So now the last point, which is also a critical piece for us, would be as to who would bear this cost of this additional compliance that we are expecting, or the necessary compliance that we are expecting? Is it the recycler who would try to do that? Is it the brand who would also look at? Because the entire supply chain is also dependent on that particular recycler or a brand who would in turn pass on this cost. So based on these broad challenges that we look at, out of these three is what we looked at as the challenges which start with, and that's where it looks like somebody has to address this question on a right definition to be put in place and showcase the right, I would say the right outcome for the suppliers who are engaging with us in terms of what is the gain that they would achieve in looking at this compliance. And the third piece is, again, the most important is who would bear this kind of cost. Sneha, those actually would be the kind of challenges that we would do.
Thank you, Swaroop. The complexity itself, I think, is one of the biggest challenges, and the lack of visibility. Hopefully, the definition of what is responsibly sourced plastics will become clear when the implementation is scaled as per the harmonized framework. But yeah, rightly said, Swaroop. And if I can come back to you, Narissa, for understanding an example of a remediation where you think there's an opportunity for other stakeholders to learn, where it has worked for workers and improved working conditions or anything related to their rights.
Well, the example that I can cite is the one that HP supported in the Responsible Sourcing Initiative project in Vietnam. So this project showed us that labor rights and in the recycling supply chain can be systematically identified and addressed only if we engage all part of the supply chain. So that includes recycler, suppliers, workers, and even waste picker. So what made this initiative unique was the methodology, because it brought together the formal and informal actors in the same room to identify and prioritize risk at each tier. So here's the key lesson that HP drew from that is remediation becomes possible only when there's clarity on risk and responsibilities, and also when worker voice are integrated into the process. Also, that particular RSI work in Vietnam has since become a reference point for HP and RSI. So the learnings are now being applied and replicated in other countries that we source from. And at the same time, HP own learning fed into the RSI project, such as scaling a specific program with IWRC, building capability for waste picker via the collective use at HP operation in Brazil. So IWRC are now being used by the wider RSI project to expand the reach across the implementation countries. So this effort reflects our ultimate goal to design an approach that not only works and is impactful during the project period, but can be sustained and scale beyond it. So.
Thank you so much, Narissa. Just quickly, I'll go back to Swaroop for maybe wrapping this up in 30 seconds. Is about any example of how you're trying to integrate informal waste workers in your supply chain, because you talked about complexity and lack of visibility up to the downstream suppliers, but what can you suggest or share?
So yeah, again, thanks to the kind of model that we were looking at these challenges in terms of the kind of opportunities that we could convert this into. And we have been onboarded as the first Indian company to be part of the Responsible Sourcing Initiative project in India. So that technically, again, would mean that the kind of supply chain visibility in terms of all the tiers that we work with was a necessity for us to be part of this program. So with that said, the initial engagement started with our aggregators who are the tier 1 suppliers. And then that's when we went into having the conversations in bringing their tiers below them into one single room. And this has been a kind of achievement in terms of addressing all those questions that I just posed a while before, of all the suppliers coming back to one place and then showcasing that what kind of requirements are we talking about, and then what is it that they would gain out of this entire program. So there was also a very recent remediation workshop which talked about some of the questions that Sushila ji was also talking about in terms of the waste pickers and waste workers who engage in this process. They were also brought into the same room along with the brand as well as the recycler and few other aggregators. And in this forum, there was a question on how can the health and safety be mitigated, and what kind of training programs might be needed in at least making sure that the daily activity of their work is actually be more protective in terms of bringing the right, using the right PPEs, and that's the smallest thing that can happen. But then maybe that's still not accessible to many of the people in the system currently. So with that as a background, so what we see is these remediation plans that we are looking at, and then once they get implemented, although we still are a kind of work in progress kind of model, but this definitely brings in a lot of visibility in terms of the work that we are trying to do, number one. And number two, we also see that there is a kind of brand recognition coming in terms of the engagement that we are doing across all tiers, which currently has not been a comfort for them. So they're trying to look at what kind of best practices can still be brought in. And most importantly, the acceptance of all the tiers coming in and then being part of this program is something that is truly remarkable, which has not been done over before these 2 years that we are talking about. So with that kind of context, now what we also see is this start is the right way of looking at what kind of possibilities are ahead of us in terms of bringing in, integrating all the people in place, all the waste picker, informal waste worker streams in place, and the system, or I would say the regulation is now conducive in terms of bringing the Namaste scheme as one of the broad schemes in recognition of waste pickers across the entire country. That's a huge kind of push which would actually integrate the entire system of waste workers, and most importantly, they being recognized, registered, which is what this program is all about. And that's when the benefits, either coming from the government systems or the public systems, of all the types of benefits that they would try to get would actually be brought in. And it is also a mandate that maybe some of the brands should look at in terms of how do they compensate in bringing the right cost to such kind of a responsibly sourced plastic. We come from that background. So what kind of cost should be attributed to any kind of responsibly sourced plastic coming in? And if that acknowledgement comes in from the brand, there is a regulator or the legislation in place from the government, there is a brand opportunity and brand participation in this kind of a segment. Recyclers, any which way, would be the kind of supply chain stream where they are part of it. And these three components actually would I see, Sneha, as a kind of right composition or a mix in taking this program further. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know we are pressed for time, but we can still take one question from the audience if you have for us, any of the panelists or me. All right, I see no questions, so I'll take this as an opportunity to pass it on to Shamina.
Sure. Thank you, Sneha, Swaroop, and Narissa. Now move into the closing segment. So for the closing segment of the session, to really connect what we have learned so far with the role of media and public action, I'm pleased to introduce Tej Prakash Yadav, Head of Project Pride at BBC Media Action. Tej, over to you.
Thank you, Shamina. And it is my pleasure to be here and talk about the role of media and communications in reframing the role of informal waste pickers. But before I begin, I would like to start with a question. And can we please have that on the slide behind me? So there is a QR code that's going to appear, and the question is very simple, and you can even take a guesstimate if you want to. So the question is, what percentage of people might think that informal waste pickers should not be allowed in buildings or their gated societies? Just take 30 seconds, and there are three options there. So it says between 20 to 30%, or 50 to 60%, or 70 to 80%. Oh, I see. Okay, technology has given me some glitch. So anybody who wants to take a shot and answer from your desk? From anyone who wants to answer from your seat? I see that 13 or 17 people have responded to this question. Any guesses?
I just want to ask you this question. This question is not very clear in the sense that what do you mean by informal waste pickers coming into buildings or not coming into buildings? Because most of the waste pickers are informal and they do come into the buildings to take away the whatever they have to collect, and that's approved by the gated community. So I'm not too sure what this means.
So I'll come to that. So anyway, I see that I can see two responses. So they have said 50 to 60%. And to be precise, this number is around 56%. And this comes from a research that we conducted in Bangalore, and I'm going to talk about that. And as I said, to be precise, this number is around 56%, and this has come from a city called Bangalore in India, and which has emerged as one of the leading technology hubs in the world. And this city is also home to around 22,000 waste pickers who are virtually invisible to the entire city, but practically indispensable to the city. They're also, they make their living by collecting recyclable materials from the streets. Some of them go household to household collecting the waste. And there's some people who also work on sorting stations and scrap shops. And they sort different kind of waste materials into different categories. About 1/3 of them are actually those who work at scrap shops. Informal waste pickers and their families, they struggle to lead a healthy life, complete with agency and autonomy. Low, uncertain wages, hazardous waste working conditions, lack of access to personal protective equipment, social security, lack of things like housing, access to education of their children, and the most importantly, the kind of perceptions people like us have about them increase their vulnerability that they already have. What our research also showed that the people of Bangalore, they care deeply about the waste on the streets, but they do not really care about the people who are behind the waste management systems. So that's one of the challenges that actually makes them invisible to the entire society or the community of Bangalore. So there is a very high degree of stigma against informal waste pickers. And what our research also showed that it is because of several things or the kinds of perception that people have about them. And it includes things like how they appear, so their physical appearance, lack of education, problems with addiction or alcoholism, or things like homelessness, and in fact the fear, and people in fact think that they are also carriers of diseases. A lot of people call them things like, use adjectives like thieves, drug addicts, and over 50% of our research, participants in our research, they said that they should not be allowed in apartments, condos, or societies. So all this is the perception that people have about the informal waste pickers. So in 2020, we embarked on a very interesting journey as part of our work in Samuhika Shakti, which is a collective of 12 organizations funded by H&M Foundation, and which aims to enable waste pickers to lead a very healthy and to lead a secure and dignified life with agency and autonomy. And we use the power of media and communications and narrative to reposition and reframe informal waste pickers in the waste value chain. We started it by doing by positioning them as friends that we did not know. So we did this through a social experiment film that you see on the first slide on the top on the top left, and then it basically helped people think about the invisible friends that they had and how waste pickers help the city in different ways and how our lives are in a way interconnected to each other. And building on that idea of friendship, then we went on to talk about and celebrate the role of waste pickers to the environment and the city of Bangalore. And we called it Happy Number. And we worked with one of the city-based folk singers to create this music video, which has now become an anthem for waste pickers of Bangalore. And they feel very recognized, and they feel that this is that there is someone who is talking about the kind of contributions that they're making. With Coffee with Recyclers, that was again another communication product that we created as part of this initiative, a 4-part YouTube series which focused on the lives, skills, and expertise of waste pickers. And we brought that forward to the city of Bangalore. In this particular series, we also talked about the aspirations that they have, the dreams that they have, and how their families are. Again, things that which are often are not talked about waste pickers in general. So there is a certain kind of imagery that has always been there amongst us about waste pickers, and we tried changing that through Coffee with Recyclers. So from creating awareness about waste pickers, which we started in 2021, today in our journey, we have reached at a place where we are also able to give call to actions to people of Bangalore, which can actually help support waste pickers in different ways. And last year, we launched something called Wash the Dabba, a very simple call to action, which actually encouraged people to empty, rinse, and dry their plastic food containers before they dispose it off. And that's primarily because this particular action has a far-reaching impact. It enhances the dignity of labor and also has a very important role in enhancing the recyclability of waste material that comes to dry waste collection centers. And what waste pickers reported after this campaign was starking. So they said that they have now started receiving cleaner food boxes at the dry waste collection centers. This made us to take this campaign a further ahead, and we are now focusing on call to action based thematic campaigns. So now, 2 months back, we also started talking about another action which focuses on contributions of waste pickers in decarbonization of waste value in fashion value chain. So now we are also talking about clothes. You can see some of these outputs. So there is a booth that we have outside this hall, and there are QR codes available. Since we do not have enough time, you can go and scan those QR codes and watch some of these outputs. And with that, I would now like to invite my colleague Varinder to talk to you about the impact of this work and the kind of dent that we have been able to make on people's behavior, and show you a short film.
And this will just take 30 seconds of showing you the impact, because I know we're over time. I think many of these things, the impact that we've made, Tej has already spoken about. We've reached about over 13 million people, not just in Bangalore, but also across the country. And, this has been possible by, creating content with the waste pickers involved, with the social media influencers as well. So I think human-centric design was very, very important to the entire process. What you see on the slide is a very rigorous evaluation that we had done, baseline to end line, and also, control design, also looking at unexposed, which is why with confidence we can say that the awareness of the waste pickers in the city of Bangalore has gone up. They're more visible, there's more mainstreaming, there are more discussions around them, around the work that they do, how they help the city, and even deep-rooted things like empathy, reframing their work. We've started to see slight movements on them, but we need more and more work around that, because this is very deep-rooted. Also, to very quickly address your question, because I think most of it Tej would have already addressed, but the informal waste pickers are the ones who are behind the scenes. They're completely invisible. So the ones who are picking up our garbage are the BBMP workers, Purvakarmikas, mostly. So, they are the ones who are coming, but these are the ones who are just held outside the apartments and not allowed in. Which is why, and 56% of the people actually saying that they should not be allowed just shows the stigma that they face. So I'll just leave you with this film, and I think that's really wrap up. So if you can just put the video on. Thank you.
Bangalore loves its food. The bene dosa to biryani, the flavors linger on the tongue and on the box it arrives in. Thousands of food boxes discarded daily, unwashed, greasy, rotting and smelly. The leftovers don't disappear. Someone has to deal with it. Someone like Mary, one of the Bangaluru's 22,500 waste pickers, are invaluable recyclers, sorting our mess. So we asked them what would help. That one small ask sparked a movement. Wash the dabba, a behavior change idea rooted in design thinking and human dignity, born from the lived reality of the most ignored, backed by the power of social storytelling. We didn't preach, we didn't guilt trip. We made the food messenger, an innocent idli, a gullible samosa that talks back.
Namaskara, Bengaluru. Did you wash the dabba?
Influencers sniffing leftovers and gagging on reels. Reels that hit 13 million views. We showed up at every touch point, from rework to bus shelters, from apartment groups. If there was a dabba, we were there. 136,000 food boxes carried it. 65 communities and 8 bus shelters amplified it. People sniffed, laughed, clicked, and most importantly, rinsed. 60% of citizen surveys started rinsing food boxes. 44% would spontaneously recall the campaign. Waste Pickers confirmed a noticeable change with cleaner food boxes. The campaign sparked citywide adaptations from Coimbatore to Kerala. A food delivery unicorn echoed the message on its platform. Waste pickers were once called rag pickers, addicts, vagabonds. After Wash the Dabba, they were seen as superheroes, real workers, warriors, real influencers. Because when you restore dignity, you don't just shift perception, you shift power.
That's it. I think with that, we will close today's session. And just to say, I think what we've heard over the last 1 hour is, of course, when all the stakeholders come together, which includes the government, the businesses, the waste workers, the home workers, of course, the workers, as well as media, to, uplift their voices, amplify their voices, I think that's when everybody wins. So just leaving everyone with that message. Thank you.